Welcome to the show. Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin appointed her to the Virginia Board of Education. Why was her appointment blocked? And evidence suggests, to paraphrase comedian Jeff Foxworthy, you just might be a racist. Oh boy, do we have a great show today. But first, I know you guys are liking these giveaways, and this time it's going to be the best one yet. Are you ready for this giveaway? I want to invite you to join me for dinner at one of my favorite restaurants. That's right, you heard me right. Fine dining with the great Eldersky. We can talk about anything you want, and I'll answer all your questions. Well, okay, mostly all your questions. It'll be a great time for sure. So hurry up and go to winlarry.com to sign up. I'll be announcing the winner live on February 22nd, so make sure to stay tuned. And last but not least, a big thank you to everybody who joined the giveaway for this mug. Be sure and use it every time you watch my show. I know where you live. And now for today's episode. As we discussed yesterday, a photo of former Arizona gubernatorial candidate Kari Lake at the Super Bowl in Arizona went viral. It shows her not standing during the playing of the so-called Negro National Anthem.
Lift every voice I see till earth and heaven.
Goodness. Are they going to charge Kari Lake with a hate crime? Was Brittany Griner unavailable for comment? You know, Booker T. Washington, back in 1911, said, and I'm quoting him, "There is another class of colored people who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Having learned that they are able to make a living out of their troubles, they have grown into the settled habit of advertising their wrongs, partly because they want sympathy and partly because it pays. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs." End of quote. Now, let's go back to an exchange I had with the race-baiting Mark Lamont Hill.
Are you saying
no, it is not a major problem in this country. No, it is not. My father was a janitor. He was born in the Jim Crow South. Fast forward, my father in his late 40s started a small business, got a little bit of property. This is what happens in America. Raised 3 boys, educated them. We have a thriving black middle class. If black America were a country, Brooke, it would be the 15th wealthiest country in the world. For crying out loud, this is not your grandfather's America. We ought not act like it is.
Yeah, but Larry, I don't think, for 2 things. One, I think your earpiece could be broken because the question was on mental health, and you once again go back to the pathologies of the black community. That's stunning to me. But
why do you have to insult me all the time? Why can't you address what I said rather than insulting me? Why is that necessary? Can we have a discussion as 2 black men without insulting each other? Is that possible? Can we try and do that, please?
Larry, I haven't insulted you. Larry, I'm not insulting you. What I'm responding to
is the... You said I was sounding a dog whistle. Why do Republicans always use a dog whistle?
I didn't say,
Why don't you deal with what I said, the merits of what I said?
Nice.
For a change, Lamont, I watch you all the time. You talk over people. You don't listen to the merits of what they say.
You're talking over me. Like, first of all, okay, a few things. I never said dog whistle. Second, you're saying engage what you talked about.
You did.
I just talked. Let me finish. I didn't. When you rewind this, you'll realize you were wrong. What I just spoke about was mental health in the black community. What I just spoke about was mental health in the black community, and you responded by talking about black people and believing that racism still exists. You totally didn't acknowledge my question or respond to my comment. So let's not talk
I want
about
us to have perspective and talk about what's important, but you won't do that.
Oh no, well you don't get to decide what's important. You don't. We all have opinions here. I made a comment. I wanted you to respond to it, but I'll respond to your comment.
You think the problem of unarmed black people is a major problem in America, and I don't.
Okay, so well, let me tell you what I think now that you've spoken. There are 2 issues here. You mentioned black-on-black crime. You say that that's a problem. I agree with you that it's a problem.
It's a huge problem. It's a massive problem.
Larry, I agree with you.
One
Let's not
voice,
argue about
gentlemen. One voice. Mark.
I agree with Larry Elder that black violence is an issue. I absolutely agree with him. So let's not argue about what we both agree on. I agree. But if this study bears out, and it does, that at least that every 28 hours an unarmed black person is killed, then that also is a problem. Is it as big a problem as this other issue?
That means it's less than 2% of the total, Lamont. Less than 2% of the total. 7,000 black people killed every year. Less than 2% are killed by police officers in an unarmed way. So why don't we talk about the 98%? And many of these murders in Chicago are unsolved. At least we know what happened in the Michael Brown case.
Okay, so let's talk about that. First of all, we do talk about what happened in Chicago. CNN did a whole special on Chicago. We talk about Chicago violence every week. I write about Chicago. I'm physically in Chicago.
What are we doing about it? What are we doing about it?
We're doing lots of things, but you can't suggest that our efforts and our energy can only be justifiable or legitimate if we solve the problem. We spend a lot of time in America trying to solve lots of problems, and we haven't solved many of them. It doesn't mean that we're not doing the work. I think that's part of the problem. But the reason we're talking about an unarmed kid right now is because one was just killed, Larry, and it's entirely reasonable when a black child is killed in the street unarmed for us to have a conversation about that without you trumping it by saying, oh, well, yeah,
at least we know what happened.
We don't know what happened.
I want to have both of you back. I want to have both of you back.
Larry.
Stay with me.
So that is the great Larry Elder. If you do not know who Larry Elder is, you should definitely look him up. I've had the pleasure of meeting him more than once. And Larry Elder's message has always been the same, pretty much. Like, Larry Elder has been around for a very long time. And the message that he's always had is that racism isn't as big an issue in the black community in America as a lot of the race hustlers like Mark Lamont Hill want to pretend that it is, okay? The great Booker T. Washington had a statement that he made, and I'm going to paraphrase it. It was something like this. The Negro problem in America, this is back in the day, this Booker T. Washington, he said the problem with black people in America is not that there's a whole lot of stuff that we have to get through. It's the fact that there is a class of black Americans that make a lot of money sort of exploiting these so-called racial problems that black people have in America. And people like Mark Lamont Hill have made hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars on this over the course of the past, 10, 15, 20 years. And for every literally 10 to 20 Mark Lamont Hills, these black race baiters in media, there's maybe like one or two Larry Elders. So it's very interesting to me, and it's funny how they call being a black Republican a grift when being a black liberal is the biggest grift that you will ever see in your life. And it is definitely one that is 10 times more well paid.
That was Rob Smith, Iraqi war veteran. Tough day at the office for Mr. Hill. This obsession with making blacks victims, blacks as something separate and apart from America and from Americans, has got to stop. Remember when Mookie Betts of the LA Dodgers was the game hero in the World Series? And in the celebration of the moment, a black announcer asked him, "What's it like to be the only African American in the World Series?"
Well, Mook, when you get to the World Series, everything's magnified. And one of the things everybody's talking about across the country, you're the only African-American player in the World Series. So when did you learn that, and what are your thoughts when you think about that?
Learned it just now.
Everybody's talking about it, Mook. When did you realize you were the only African-American in the World Series? Learned it just now. And in a 60-minute segment, a celebrated poker player, a black man named Phil Ivey, was asked, what's it like to be a black man playing poker?
The phrase, you're young, you're gifted, you're black, highly successful, the whole 9 yards. Has race been a factor at all?
Has race been a factor? No. Not in poker. In poker, they only see one color, that's green.